Well, hello sunshine. What we're going to do for you today, we're going to lower a cylinder on this 026. It's already done. I'm going to let it sit here and warm up just a minute, talk to you guys just a minute. The choke's still bad, so I got to hold it with my thumb. So anyhow, guys, what we got going on, what we did, we lowered the cylinder back down on that 026. We reshaped the top of the piston, and now we've lowered the cylinder because we went from about 155, if memory serves me correct, PSI compression. When we changed the top of that piston to get a better burn, she went down to about 110. We lost a lot of horsepower. So I cut the base on the cylinder, which changed some timing. Now that brings me to this. Guys, I'm trying something different here. You'll notice I got a new camera. The rest of this video will be the old camera, except for the test cut here I'll do in a minute, and I'll throw that in later. Loading up a little, ain't she? It's all right. I digress. What I was going to say, if you'll look down below, I'm starting to try to put chapters in on some of these videos. So if you guys want to go back and just see the dyno run, or if you just want to go back and see, this here video is going to have, it's going to show me cutting the base on a mini lathe. Okay, it's going to have us timing that and how I time this whenever I'm really trying to get down to the gnat's behind on timing. And then there'll be, I want to show you a little nuance I just happened to notice inside this engine. That's the lower end of that's genuine Stihl 026. The aftermarket is the cylinder and piston. So I found a nuance in the genuine Stihl stuff. I want to show you that. That's kind of neat. Anyhow, I'm going to break them all down into chapters, so if you guys want to go back and watch something specific like the timing discussion, we have a real nice timing discussion in this one. Join in. But I'm trying to put new chapters in there. There's going to be a little bit of transition here on the channel, guys. I got a new camera I'm trying out. So there's going to be a transition in that. I've got a bunch of video already shot that I ain't got edited. This got pretty good content on my old camera, so we're going to go up and back. Guys, if you can stand her and earn it, give her a thumbs up. Consider subscribing. We're trying to get better all the time. But I'm going to try to put chapters down there in that little play line, you know, where you can hold your mouse over that, and I'll try to label them. I figured out how to do that. So there you go. Enjoy the rest of the video. I appreciate it. Stick around. Scroll around in there. If you get too bored, you might skip ahead to something else instead of just clicking out, maybe. That's what I'm trying to do, honestly, guys, is... and if you skip around much, I'm going to ask you a favor, and it probably ain't worth it. I don't know. It's still a favor, or it's a thought. It's a consideration. If you skip around just because you want to see the first part and the last part, and if you don't hate it too much, my watch time will be down on that video, which don't make a nickel's worth of difference in my pocket. Not a penny's worth. I don't say that. But if you'll hit the thumbs up, especially then, if you're just getting a little bit out of it, it will help that algorithm, because if it shows people just watching 2 minutes of a 10-minute video, well, it thinks nobody likes that. So if you click back on it, or if you're just skipping around in there and you enjoyed a little bit of it, give me a thumbs up if you would. I'm asking for that, I guess. So enjoy the video while this saw's warming up, then I'll get you a test cut and dyno results and everything, and we'll get going. Okay, show you what I got here to cut this cylinder base on a mini lathe. There's some work to be done. It's not just all that easy as it would be on a big lathe, because you don't have enough room in here to get everything back as far as it needs to be. I got to run this cross slide back just far enough to where this here handle will turn for my end feed, and that's kind of a bad design on these little lathes. If you put this cross feed over here, it blocks this handle from turning, so you got to run it in and out with cross feed. Well, I want to run in and out with the 90, plus I got to run the cross feed off to the side and then cant this bit in there, and I got to have a tool holder and then I got to turn that tool. Basically, when I put this on here, I run that cross slide into where it'll just clear. It'll just come far enough back, and it don't have real good purchase on them ways right there doing that. And I don't have enough on this side of the head. Now, if I had a longer cross slide, I could shift it this way and probably do it a little bit different, but I don't. If Froggy had wings, he would bump his butt and he jumped. And if I had a bigger lathe, and if this and then if that, and if ifs and buts was candy and nuts, what a Merry Christmas we'd have. But we don't. So, what have I got? I've got this just happens to fit. It's an 1.25" impact socket. Been used plenty. And it fits that bore real good, and there'll be a friction drive up against this end, and I'll put a live center in here. Or, yeah, which one do you call it? Yeah, it's live center. It'll spin. I'll put that in there to mash that up against there good. So that'll work for a friction drive in there. Now, we're not going to be able to take 100 thousandths off her to go. And then I'll set my, we'll zero up, and we'll put us a, yeah, we'll put a dial indicator down there. And now, a 6-point socket actually chucks up in these mini lathes real good on the inside. And of course, you'll want to put your, you'll want to zero it, because they're still, that don't, just because they fit on there don't mean they're perfect. And we'll see, it was zeroed pretty good, and I had some grease and oil wiped on it so it turned good. Let's see here. And there is a low spot in that socket. We're within about 1,000th. That's going to be good enough for the base. Call that good. And in there where they stamp the size and the brand and stuff like that, when they stamp them in, that upsets that metal. So you'll want to take your file and sandpaper, and you'll want to clean that socket up good. And I still use this socket when I need the socket. It's just I know 1 1/4" fits this 44.7 millimeter bore, just the right outside diameter. So it works fairly good. Like I say, the biggest thing is getting everything set just right on this head, so you'll have enough throw to be able to do it. I was telling guys this morning, it's like pulling a 16-foot hay mower through a 12-foot gate. You can go, but you've got to hit everything just right. So let me get this cylinder on there. I'm going to go get me some Acky-Pucky, spray on there, clean that off, because I don't want any grit in there tearing up the inside of the cylinder. And we'll get us a dial indicator set here so we can watch for feed. I want to take off, I don't know, if I take off 20 thousandths, I'll be back down to 18 thousandths, and we lost a lot of horsepower, so we may gain her back. We may try to gain her back. And this cylinder here is still that one that's compromised, so we're just testing everything out. When we get ready to go in a new cylinder, we'll know where we want to be. I'll be right back with you. We'll cut this base. And you also want to check this flange. And I've got no way of saying that the flange would be wrong if the bore's off, so I'll cut it about where it's at, or where it was. I'm taking 1,000th in there, but that's close enough for government work, I think. Heck, it's just an engine. They got all kinds of play in them. Now, in case you bump this dial indicator off, and I moved it, it don't hurt to have basically a preliminary measurement elsewhere. About 268 thousandths on that one. About 268 thousandths. So I need to go down to 250 thousandths, give or take there. But I'll run off my dial indicator. But if I was to happen to bump that, I'm not lost. I know where to start, or I know where I started basically. I've been in and out of here a couple times. Okay, I think we're on it. I think we can get plumb in there to the cutter bar. If I'd bring you guys down there, I can just barely see daylight between where that's almost to hit my cross slide. So guys, there's issues with doing this on a mini lathe. And I sold my big lathe and didn't need it anymore, and I still don't need it. And I've got access to great big old lathes, spin 40-inch stuff if I need to, 10 foot long. But I don't like wasting favors, especially on this kind of thing. And my cross slide, I'll mention, is set pretty far back. It's about half out of that dovetail. Now I tightened up the ways on that right where it's at. It won't be good on it to move it. I'll have to reset them ways later, readjust them, but I've got it tightened up, and I really don't care that the angle of the cross slide or anything right now. I just wanted it basically seized up. Well, hello, Kix. Are you a good boy? Huh? Are you a good boy? I know you're mad at me. I left you at home yesterday while I had the whole hogs, and left you at home today while I was tedding, didn't I? Poor boy. By golly, we only took off about 1,000th, and we hit her all the way around. We're good. Yeah. By golly. I guess we got her zeroed pretty good, don't we? And I don't like running these little lathes too fast. Some guys spin up lathes, and they probably know more about it than me. I've got some machinist background, but I ain't no master machinist. And I don't like running that fast or cutting that fast. For me, especially something that's out of balance like that on a little lathe like this, it'll shake all over the table like that chainsaw with bent rod or something. And besides that, this ain't gonna take that long. We'll take about 3,000 set of cut. Guys, what are we gonna do next? I've got another cylinder, but I want to do some more testing on this one here. And guys, I've got some ideas. I've got a squish band idea. It ties right in with fuel economy. Now bear with me. That squish band keeps the fire from burning all the way out against the edge of that cylinder. We know that. That's common. We'll agree with that. Let's at least agree with that it slows down the burn rate under what's under the squish band. Doesn't hit that as fast. And that promotes a cooler saw. Now, that fuel don't burn good, and let's say it doesn't hardly add any power to the fuel that's under that squish band. So let's consider if that's right. Now, we got a whole lot of ifs going on here. If I'm right about that, then I'd like to look at that squish band as a fuel-powered radiator. Meaning if I got a great big squish band to keep this saw cool because I've got my compression jacked up or getting a serious amount of horsepower out of it, I think the squish band is going to be very much tied into how much cooling you need. Okay, how much cooling you need is going to depend on how much horsepower you're putting out to an extent. By that I mean this little cylinder here was designed to put out 3.2 horsepower, and they made a squish band accordingly to how much those fins will sap heat, right? Heat sink. So they put enough of a squish band in there to meet EPA, but really they'd rather cool it all with squish band because they're buying aluminum. They're not buying gas. That's up to you to buy that. So they've got to put enough squish band in there to meet EPA and keep the saw cool, right? Okay, now we're going to put a bunch more horsepower into this saw, but we're not putting any more aluminum on the outside, so we've got to figure out how to keep that cool. Well, now part of it, mufflers and everything else, we get that. I'm talking past that. I think, guys, follow me on this, I think I would like to try to consider that squish band is a fuel-powered cooling device. It uses fuel to cool it. That squish band determines how much that fuel is used to cool the saw. Everything outside the squish band's there to make power. Is a way to consider, a way I want to try to consider that. Because I know there's been a lot of study on squish band ratio, and I think they're kind of on the. I don't know if it's ever been said that way, but that's the way I'd like to think about it. Guys, tell me what you think. I was talking to a guy today. You all know who it is. I ain't dropping names, though. I'm not trying to be a name dropper. I was talking to him for a good bit today. And basically telling him the same thing. And I said, I think a guy... We was talking about fuel economy, and I think the squish band is going to have a whole lot to do with your fuel economy. Meaning this saw here, if I get it up to 5 horse, it's going to need more of a squish band to keep it cool than a saw that was originally designed for 5 horse, which means it's going to cut my fuel economy, right? It's going to use part of that fuel to keep this saw cool. So, a guy's got to weigh it out. I was telling him, I said, I got a saw, I run around the bottoms down there and go around fence, and I got a pretty good hill to climb to get down there, and a pretty good hill to climb to come back up, and I'll be dadgummed if I want to take and have to run a saw back up top of that hill after a while to get fuel. Don't want to have to do that. I've got a pretty fuel efficient saw to run down there, and a saw like this, it don't have as big a fuel tank as a 5 horse motor or a 5 horse saw would, because they didn't expect it to be putting out that many horsepower. So guys, everybody will have to be their own judge on what they want to do with fuel economy, what's more important to them, what weighs out and what don't. But I would like to try to figure that out. The way they do tractors, used to anyhow, during the Nebraska test time, they would figure out horsepower hours per gallon. Meaning, well, that's just what it was. Horsepower hours per gallon is what it was. I think we can do something like that on that dyno if I can figure it out without getting the saw too hot, because I want to be able to put it under a constant load like I do on my heat test, and maybe figure out a way or a switch or something, I don't know, to put a measured amount of fuel in a, let's say, 100cc syringe, I don't know, and just see how long it'll go. Guys, tell me what you think about what would be a good way to start measuring fuel economy, because we all talk about it. I'll be dadgummed if I know how to make it work. I know some things are bad for fuel economy, but I don't know how to make it better. I think squish band may be a key to that. I'd like to prove it out. And I can measure horsepower, and I got, as long as the sun's out, I'm able to measure time as long as my sundial ain't in the shade. We can measure time. We can surely get us no milk jug or something, measure a gallon of fuel. And if you can measure all three of those, measure horsepower, time, and fuel, you can figure out horsepower hours. And I think that'd be something neat to go with, especially when we get done with this saw. This here saw's got a purpose in life. It's gonna be probably a chainsaw or a firewood saw for Dad, and I'll probably tame it back down when I'm done playing with it. But it's not firewood cutting weather right now. And, I'll get something else to play with, and we'll get a bunch of cylinders for it, and we'll start testing stuff like that. But guys, get your brain caps on. Tell me what you'd like me to try to do with that. And we can measure heat in the cylinder, of course, too. So we can know, yeah, we can make a more fuel efficient saw that may just get hotter than the hubs of heck. Well, that's not necessarily any good either. You got to keep the saw cool so it'll live. So we can measure the heat and horsepower hours per gallon and things like that. I don't know. Tell me what you think, guys. My mind's always a spinning. That's just something it was a spinning on today. We'll do some double checking here. We've got all we want off here. Maybe a little more than that. We may get to take some more off the piston. Wouldn't that be dandy? Yeah, that's the business. All right, guys, we got the base cut on her. We'll go ahead and measure squish, and like I say, I want to change stop that piston, and if I got to take a couple thousandths off the piston to get that, we will. Yeah, we'll measure squish, see where we're at. Okay, we got the cylinder put back on there after cutting the base. We're still desaxed, however you say that French word. We're still offset cylinder. Guys, I'm going to get this camera about where my eye's at. I'm going to move you around a little bit, I'm sorry. And I'm going to get my glasses on too. I'm going to try to get you guys on the same plane as my eyeball, and I'm going to try to look right over the camera. It's going to be a little hard reaching around you. Now, when I'm trying to get real technical, if you want to call it technical, on reading timing wheel, I don't look at the pointer. I mean, I do look at the pointer, but you got to have 2 points to do a straight line, if you see what I'm saying. So what I do is I line this pointer up with like the center of that bolt hole, or I just pick me a spot. It could be a paint chip, it could be anything, just so I make sure I got my head in the same spot like this every time. I don't want it moving around. So I'm kind of looking through that bolt hole, and I'm showing we're on exhaust opening right now, and I'm showing and you guys know that I use a piece of MIG wire, so my exhaust numbers will show a little bit different than everybody else. I'm not necessarily hunting the first ray of light, because to me that is that could be a little subjective too, how much light. Well, and I got to wiggle that back and forth. We're kind of rounded on top, so I got to make sure it's in there. And I'm showing right where I was showing a while ago. I'm showing 100 degrees on top on exhaust opening. Now we're going to roll this around, and I'm going to hold that just steady as I can, and we're going to show about 99 and a quarter maybe degrees, if we can call quarter degree on there. But basically 99 on exhaust close, and we're going to call that 100 on exhaust open. Okay, and we'll do the same thing with the intake. And like I say, I don't worry about the ray of light. I've got the end of that. I use that same piece of MIG wire all the time, and I've got the end of it just filed just as smooth as I can. I don't want to scratch a piston or do something like that. I'm gonna let you guys sit right there, and I gotta get in there and see, make sure I'm in the bottom of that, basically that trough, and I wasn't. Kind of didn't think I was, just from where the timing numbers are showing up, and this is the first time I've timed it, so and then I can kind of hold that. I can kind of hold that MIG wire right there. Where are we at, guys? Let me know. We was at 67. We're at 70 and a quarter. And we're at 71. 71 and a quarter, maybe. Even if I'm not seeing the exact same numbers you are, we should both be seeing the same distance. 69 and 3/4. Yeah, let me see. Let me get my eye just right. 69 3/4 or 70. And go the other way. 71, full 71. Wait, I had the wrong eye closed. Dadgummit. Yeah, I just used one eye. Sorry, guys. 71 on the exhaust, or 71 on the intake closing. And we're going to call it 70 on the intake open. And 71 on the intake up close. So let me write those down. Okay, I got those wrote down. The first thing we're going to do now is, and that's another reason I like using this MIG wire. We're going to be on. We're in transfers right now, so after top dead center, 110, 20, we're at about, dadgummit, had the wrong eye shut again. What do we call it, 124 degrees? I haven't moved, you guys. 124 degrees, that's transfers close. And you're showing about 124 and a quarter, 124 and a half. Transfers open. Transfers close. 124. Transfers open. Just for easy, I'm going to call it 125. 124. 125, and I realize it's probably only 124 3/4. Okay, guys, here's where we're at on this cylinder, and what we've done all this work to just change the squish area shape. It was backwards. It's pretty flat, maybe got a degree of opening towards the correct side now. We're still working with a DSAC cylinder. It's offset 60 thousandths, give or take a couple. We've done some piston work on this. We took the top, changed the shape of the top of that piston, got a better burn. We did that in the last video, and we got a lot better burn but we were so far down on compression because I'd changed top of that piston so much. So this time we lowered this piston, and I also did just a little bit more work to we lowered the cylinder, and I did just a little bit more work to the piston. It kind of had an edge on there I didn't like, and it wasn't burning up over it good, so I brought that at an 18-degree angle. Nah, maybe 15. I'd have to check. Doesn't matter. Angle. We changed the angle. So now we're at 100 degrees exhaust closed, 99 degrees exhaust open, 71 on the intake open, 70 on the intake closed, 124 on transfers open, 124 transfers closed, 22 thousandths of squish. Our piston's down to 49.98 grams. We was down off of, if my memory serves me, 55.47. We've gained over 10% or lost over 10% of that piston. And what's that do for us? Well, I'd calculated it the other day, and I've took a couple more grams off. But at that time, it either gave me, depends on how you want to look at the losses, I could spin this saw 480 RPMs faster before the inertia forces equaled what they had been previous. Meaning, I could spin this saw faster, and the saw thinks it's still got no more, the crankshaft doesn't feel, the rod doesn't feel any more load than it had because I'd lightened that piston up. So I gained some free RPMs there, or took weight off of what the rod feels. If you're running at the same RPM, then you just lowered the stresses on the rod. Depends on which way you're going with that. Case compression, we're up to 54 degrees. We was at 53 before, so we gained a degree of case compression by moving that cylinder and taking that piston top down. Case vacuum, we picked up a degree there, so that's pretty good. And now I really like Iron Horse, and I hate to hesitate to say his name. Let people think I know him. Let people think I'm name dropping. I'm not. He's always talked about total opening on intake, and with moving this cylinder forward, I think I'm going to have to discount that now. And he's been great at teaching us all along the way. And I'm sure if he was to chime in, he'd probably say, yeah, you're right. I just never said that part, because there's so much he leaves open for us to think about. But when you go to desaxing a cylinder, offsetting a cylinder, you may want to quit worrying about total opening. Let me say it like this. Let's say you like 160 degrees. That's your perfect combination for this saw, and you want to hit 160 degrees, and you're getting right down there with a fine-tooth comb, and you're not satisfied with 159 duration. You want 160. You want to get it right on the money. Well, that's fine if your cylinders are set the same. Now, if you move your cylinder, offset your cylinder, or if it's just factory offset just a little bit, some of them do that. Some of them do it in the machining process, loss of tolerance. Some of it offset the piston pins. So we got some things going on here. I think I need to quit with the total opening and start going with intake open and intake close. Meaning, if I was shooting for, let's say, 160 degrees on this saw, and it was centered up, that'd be 80 and 80, right? 80 open, 80 close. We can all figure that. But when you go to offsetting it, you'll be at like 75 open and 85 close, which is going to give you 5 degrees more case compression and 5 degrees less of case vacuum. And you may not be able to save that much. You may not be willing to give up that much vacuum. So you might say, well, I want 160 is perfect on a centered cylinder, but I only need 157 because I can't sacrifice that much case vacuum on a moved cylinder. But I digress. I'm going to move down. Transfers open at 124. We said that we gained 4 degrees of intake, and let me back up. We did, if we want to do it this way, we did gain 4 degrees of intake duration over what our previous one was by moving that cylinder down. We also gained about a degree of blowdown and a degree of what I'm going to call reverse blowdown, which is where your muffler has time to work. I really don't want to gain a degree over here. I don't mind having a degree over here, but a degree over here is actually a loss. And we put a degree in there. We're 14 degrees to Freeport, give or take, so there's that going on. What else? I don't know. I think we're about ready to yank this back off of here and put some rings in it and see if we gained anything. And there's a perfect example of what I was talking about on manufacturing tolerance. The pin in this factory rod is not true with the center line of that crank. It's actually offset towards the exhaust side just a little bit. The piston's actually going to set offset of this according to one, and it might go the other way. So there's another reason you can see intake and opening and closing numbers different. I think it's always due to being off center. It's how we change so many things with this here one step, which I've been trying to do it one step at a time and just only change one thing. Well, the last run was the piston and way lower compression, we know that. And I had a set of rings in there. It was a little bit compromised. I'd got 5 sets coming and I've had them for a little bit, but I didn't know when to switch over to them because I've been testing. I didn't want to switch out rings. So they're not seated yet or nothing. Not been run. But like I say, we ended up having to cut the base. We knew we was going to do that, so that was going to change. That changed all our timing numbers and everything. So I took that as a time to also change the rings. So we've got a set of rings in it that are not broken in whatsoever. They've got, well, fuel lines right there, and I just filled it up. So I mean, they've got 2 tablespoons of fuel through them. But I stopped it, pulled it down. We're looking about 162 compression. We was at 110 on that piston the way it was before I set the squish back down. We was at 175 on this piston before I scored it just a little bit. So we gained a little bit of compression is what I'm trying to say, but I think we'll probably still gain some more. I think I need to run this a little bit, put it in some wood, just mess around with it a little bit before I put it on the dyno. But we're back up there with compression. We've changed the shape of the piston. I looked in there. We'll get it apart and let you look at it. Probably not in this video, but it'll be the next one. And I think we'll eat up some lower transfers on the next one too, see if we gain or lose there. Anyhow, let's get her on dyno for you guys. For me, it'll probably be a few days, but for you guys, right now, let's get her on dyno. Stihl 26, lowered the cylinder. Heat run. And you hardly ever see the hour meter, but what are we? A little over 8 hours on the dyno. Most of us been on this saw. That's a lot of dyno time on a saw, ain't it? All right, guys, what I got here, I got a 42-inch bar on that saw, and there's this 36-inch piece of frozen. Shell's hot out here. I was gonna hold it up with my skid steer. I forgot to plug it in last night. It's froze solid. Won't start. So 36-inch piece of frozen ironwood. Now, actually, it's pretty soft wood. It's ginkgo. It's probably 10 inches right there. We'll just do a couple test cuts on it, just see how it cuts. I've cut on this saw and this one here before. Let's see how she runs, guys. Well, she'll cut, won't she, guys? Oh, it's hot out here. It's only 8 o'clock right now, and it's already pushing the 90s, and the humidity ain't burned off yet. The wear's heavy. I'm not trying to make excuses for the saw by the weather. My skin's leaking, so I just letting you know. The saw ain't running as good as it could because it's so hot. It was dark when I sharpened the chain. Sun was in my eyes. The rakers on one side are too high, and the rakers on the other side are gone. What else? I got the chain on backwards. Got the bar on upside down. Any other excuses? Last time I went through excuses, I scored a cylinder. So I hope we don't have that excuse again. Oh, goodness gracious. Guys, appreciate her. Yeah, let's get in to see some dyno results. Okay, everybody. Appreciate you coming in. Appreciate you sticking around this far or jumping around. Appreciate that. We got some dyno results here, and it never hurts to go back just a little bit and do a progress report. Here's where this cylinder won just like it started out. We messed up a cylinder or two along the way. I think this was this cylinder. Aftermarket, this was a new aftermarket cylinder. She hit 3.15 horse at 8,350 RPMs, which is about stock. That's about what that saw would hit stock. Advertised 3.2, so 0.05 of a horsepower. That's not much. So we was right in there with what it would do stock. At this current configuration, we're up to 4.4 horsepower at 9737. Okay, so we've put in, just short of 1,400 RPMs and just short of 1.3 horsepower. So we're gaining on it. Let's go up and look where we've been on the last couple, though, and we'll see the recent gains. And this chart only not showing foot-pounds, and it's just ranging from 2 horsepower to 4.5, so it shows the difference pretty good. 5,500 out to 12,000. And you can see up here at 12,000, we're already way above what this thing ever reached. So this thing's making more horsepower at 12,000 now than it even pulled down to at 8,350. So we're doing some gains on this, so we're doing some good. It's getting a lot more enjoyable to run. Let me get the next chart set up here for you. Okay, again, we're at 5,500 RPMs out to 12,000, and our range is running from 1.5 to 4.5 over here on the side, so we can incorporate the torque curve and the horsepower curve. The red line, as always, or as I always try to do, is the current configuration. The blue line is always the previous configuration. If I put 3 lines in there, I try to make it green. And that was 2 configurations ago, because we've been doing this step by step, we all know. All right, so where was we at? We'll start with the green line. We was at our offset cylinder, our DSAC cylinder, and we gained pretty good. We was at 4.26 horsepower. Offsetting that cylinder really gained us. Well, we reshaped the top of that piston on the last configuration, which dropped compression way down, because I took a lot off that piston's top, try to get the shape I wanted. Okay, that dropped us down. Now we took and lowered the base back down, and that boosted our compression up. Plus we've got the better shaped piston in there. We're starting to gain on her pretty good now. So the offset cylinder was at 4.26 horse at 9960. After I done the piston, we was at 3.9 horse. Like I say, we dropped 0.36 horse. And the RPMs was just right in there. We'll just call it the same, 9969. Then we lowered the cylinder, and we did drop RPM just a little bit in the max by, 150, 200 RPMs, which changed the timing numbers a little, so we can expect some of that. But we gained horsepower, and we gained torque the whole curve. We didn't lose anywhere. We didn't give up anywhere. We gained everywhere from where we've been. Now, this 4.4 is not as high as this saw had been. It really likes 10-degree time in advance. We know that. But I'm not running a 10-degree time in advance right now, because I want to compare apples and apples, and I want to make sure I get the time in advance back the same every time. So I'm running the key in it. One of these first few days, we'll put the key, we'll we'll advance it up and see where we're at. I'd like to hit around 5 horsepower with it, and then probably tame it back down to about 4.5 horse, because this saw cools good at 4.5 horse. Now, speaking of cool, let me get you to the next chart. Okay, now we're going to run the same colors as we did on the last one. We got some temp and horsepower charts here, and there's a couple anomalies here I want to show you. This pretty neat. We lowered, the red line, of course, is current configuration. That's the lowered cylinder, and we got temp and horsepower. And the one previous to that, of course, was the piston mod, which we lost. That's the lowest line. And then the green line was just the old backup 2 rings I had. And I will reiterate, I think I said it earlier in the video, it's taken me a while to video this one. We were running a set of backup rings, and they were a little compromised, and they were starting to seat in. So this lowered cylinder, temp and horsepower, that actually might get a little bit better, because those rings will probably start breaking in a little bit. It's not got very much time on it. And there's a couple things I wanted to show you. What I like doing, see, on the backup rings, we started at 3.94 horsepower on this 1 minute of heat run. I pull this down to whatever horsepower it'll pull at 10,000 RPMs, and I measure it 5, 10, 15 seconds all the way out to a minute. And I try to start off at 250 Fahrenheit. Ignore the decimal in there. I did that just so it'll fit in a chart. 3.6 is actually 360 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's what this saw made it up to over a 1 minute run, starting out at 250. So it put on 160 degrees of temperature, or 110 degrees of temperature. I'm sorry there. Bad math in my head there, wasn't it? So we seen more temperature rise on this lowered cylinder, and I think a guy would assume that's due to more horsepower, because I don't think I changed anything else that should raise the heat. We're running the same muffler. It was tuned the same. I dyno tuned everything the same on the same way. So I don't think it was due to tune or anything else. I think the added heat was just due to added horsepower. Now, speaking of added horsepower, now the backup rings, those were seated in the best, and you'll see that on the last video. We compared these two on the last video, but we started out at 3.94 horse, and that heat run, and ended up at 3.93 horse. So we really didn't lose horsepower over a minute. It goes up and down a little bit as we go through there, but very minimal. There's 3.94, 3.90, 3.93. So it's hard to hold right on 1,000 as the oil heats up and the chainsaws heat, you know. It's hard to hold right on 10,000 RPMs with the pull on the dyno. I do a pretty good job, but it's hard. I say that to say this, it might bump up and down a half a tenth just for operator error. But the old green line hung in there pretty good. All right, when we modified the top of that piston, and I told on myself last time too, and I'll tell on myself again, I put the bottom ring on top and the top ring on bottom. I switched those rings around inadvertently, and when I come in here and looked at the heat during the last video, I'm like, crap, I think I did that. Well, sure enough, I did. I had the rings upside down, which in my mind, see, we went from 3.77 horsepower to 3.69, 3.65. We lost about a tenth of a horsepower over a minute's worth of run as the saw got hotter, right? We didn't lose with the backup rings in the correct position. We lost here. We lost about a tenth of a horsepower over a minute's run. When it got up 360 degrees, it was losing horsepower. All right, now we're also losing it, not quite as bad, 3.7. We lost a little bit, but we lost less than we did having the rings backwards. But this is a new set of rings. I went ahead and put a new set of rings in because it changed so many variables that I put the new set of rings in. I really expect this line here to flatten off and not drop down in the future as those rings seat in. But we've got some more double ring, thin ring, and single ring testing coming up, and we'll keep delving into that. I think we're onto something here with seeing how much compression gas is getting in that bottom end by watching this one minute dyno pull. So guys, tell me what you think. Tell me what you think everything here means. see where we're going. Tell me what you think of this new camera here. It was on the beginning and on the end here. I'm trying the best I can, guys, to make the best videos I can, because I want you guys to join in, and I don't want you getting aggravated halfway through because you can't hear. So I'm trying to make it good, because I want you guys to be able to have the patience to sit through me jabbering. And I think we got some good information, and I don't want you getting mad and upset and then not even commenting. I'd like for you guys, the guys that's never commented before, I'm welcoming you. Welcoming you guys. Get in there, introduce yourself, anything. Get in there and just throw a little comment down. Even if you don't like doing it, you'll find this is one good group of people right here, down here in the comments, and discussing stuff down here. So guys, appreciate it. If I earned her, give her your hitchhiker. If I didn't, give her your Julius Caesar. Appreciate it, guys.